Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I'm Heena Gambhir. Tonight, I want to focus on continuous rise in the prices of LPG cylinders in India. The domestic cooking gas has become more expensive. Second time in the month of May, the prices have been hiked by 3 rupees and 50 paise. Now, if you are somewhere in the national capital and want to buy a cylinder for your house, then be ready to pay 1,003 rupees for one cylinder. Mumbaikars will have to pay 1,002 rupees for one LPG cylinder. In Kolkata, the prices are even higher, 1,029 rupees per cylinder. While in Chennai, it's slightly lower than Kolkata but higher than Delhi and Mumbai. One LPG cylinder is going to cost you 1,018 rupees. Yes, the LPG cylinder price has gone 1000 par. Since March 2021, the price has been increased by almost 200 rupees per cylinder. Just look at the number of hikes that we have seen consecutively. And this at a time when we had pandemic in the country. Now with the worsening situation as far as inflation is concerned due to what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, things have become even bad, and that's the reason why the cylinder prices have been increased once again by the oil marketing companies this time. In the last 8 years, the price of LPG cylinder has more than doubled. It used to be around 414 rupees and now it has crossed 1,000 rupees for one cylinder. And here's how it is impacting each one of us. As per Council on Energy, Environment and Water, which is a policy research institute, the monthly expense on cooking gas in March 2020 used to be 4.9%. Now, in just 2 years, viewers, it has risen to 11%. So what people are spending today to buy cooking gas on a monthly basis is more than double of what they used to spend in March 2020. That is the kind of impact people are seeing on their monthly budgets. It's eating into our savings. In fact, a survey by local circles has found that 7 out of 10 households have seen their monthly expenses go up by 10% in the last 3 months because of Mehngai. Listen in to what the people in the metros have to say.
When the fuel prices increases, everything increases. So I was just told today that the price for the rice has gone up by 8 kilo. Okay. And it's very surprising that people are not talking about this. Okay. People are deviated, they are talking about all other issues, but we're silent on this. Okay. Let's hope that India doesn't have or doesn't face something like Sri Lanka or whatever other neighboring countries are facing.
People should more talk about the inflation which is going on, and government should also talk about it, because there was a time when governments used to fall because of inflation.
It's only the government who can do something in this issue. Okay. It's the government to take necessary steps to do something in this. Affecting a lot. Really, it's affecting a lot. The public area, especially the common man.
As you told right now that in March the price had hiked by 50 rupees and then in May, on May 7th again 50 and now 3.50. It's like 1003. I think what is next? It will be like 1500 per gas. What will the middle class family do?
इतना डिफिकल्ट हो रहा है कि ये घर में अगर 5 जन खाने वाले, एक आदमी काम करने वाला, वो कैसा चलेगा? आज तो पेट्रोल का भाव बढ़ रहा है, डीजल का भाव बढ़ रहा है, गैस का भाव बढ़ रहा है. अभी ये 2-3 महीने में कितना बढ़ा? आज का मैंने 9 टीवी देखा था तो 1,003 रुपया हुआ, 3.5 रुपया बढ़ गया. इंसान कैसा जिएगा, कैसा करेगा? ये पेट्रोल डीजल के ऊपर, ये भाजी के ऊपर कौन नहीं बोलता? देखो अब इतनी खराब सब्जी है तो भी मैं काट के ले रही हूँ.
सबको हुआ जैसा हमारे को है मैडम. 4 आदमी को हुआ जाएगा, हमारे को भी होएगा. अब भारत में कितना 1,100 रुपया है गैस का. अब गरीब लोग को तकलीफ है, समझ गया है. गरीब लोग अब किधर से देगा? पूरा मिल गया पब्लिक है, वो सबको बोला तो कम होएगा, नहीं तो नहीं होएगा.
1,050 रुपया हो गया, अभी नेक्स्ट 1,500 हो जाएगा. सेम टू सेम श्रीलंका, यही हालत होएगा.
That LPG prices have gone high and it's becoming very difficult for us to manage at home because price rise has affected all of us at every point in our lives, and this has been a very, very, very big hike that has come in, and I don't think I can manage much with the salary that I draw now. if there's not going to be much of a issue with the salaries, then I think this price rise is really going to affect us in a big way.
To be frank, it's commonly getting affected because for maintaining the monthly expenses, we have certain budget. Let's say for my petrol and LPG, because based on that only as a middle class people will run a family, right? Because it is not a fixed one because per month basis they'll keep on increasing 100 rupees, 200 rupees, 300 rupees. From my understand, from my childhood, it is only 250 rupees. Now it is crossing almost 1000 plus. For affording that middle class people, no, it is to be frank, it is very very difficult for me to run a very good family.
Well, it does affect the middle class and lower middle class. So it increases when they have a monthly salary. It's beyond their budget. If the cylinder prices increase so much.
So you heard, viewers, what the people had to say. People in the country are getting impacted because of the rise in cooking gas prices month on month. In fact, in this month, second time we have seen prices getting increased like this. And, you know, it's a show for you. The numbers are flashing at the bottom of your screen. If in case you're also feeling this inflation pinch, do call us and tell us how bad the situation has become because of the rise in Mengai. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, national spokesperson of the BJP, is joining us on the broadcast on Urban Debate this evening. Aishwarya Mahadev, spokesperson of the Congress Party, is live with us. Riju Datta, spokesperson of TMC. S. Ravi, former director of an oil and natural gas company, former chairman BSc and a practicing CA, also live with us. Karthik Ganesan, fellow and director Research Coordination Council on Energy, Environment and Water, joining us as well. Good evening to all of you. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, you heard what the people had to say. How will you like to respond to their concerns? From Sabka Vikas to Sabse Mehengi Gas, the prices of LPG cylinders in the country today are the highest if you compare it to any other country in the world.
The thing is that Heena ji, we have to understand that due to supply chain disruptions in the whole post-pandemic era and also due to the Ukraine-Russian war, the gas supply to Ukraine was mainly the biggest gas supplier globally. So the issue is about disruption and the prices of the natural gases, even petrol prices, etc., and petroleum products, etc., has gone up. What the government understands that there is a pinch of inflation to the poor sections majorly, more than middle class and the upper income group. Middle class also has some difficulty in this situation. So the government is trying to working on several social welfare schemes where we are trying to put the money into the hand of the most poor or vulnerable sections in the society or bottom of the pyramid, so that their the pinch on them, their pocket is felt in a limited manner. And inflation, as far as
but
inflation
Mr.
is
Agarwal,
concerned,
you are planning to take care of the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. 1 second, Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal. The question is that everybody today is getting impacted because of the way LPG cylinder prices are increasing in the country. What is it that your government is planning to do?
The thing is that the government is exploring various sources where we can extract natural gas in the country. Even we are negotiating on the renewable energy aspects so that hydrogen energy, hydrogen gas can be worked in replace natural gases, etc. And other solar energy and other things are being worked around so that our dependence upon the global petroleum products and the gas is
all
reduced.
This is fine, Aishwarya Mahadev. We've been hearing about exploring other options for quite some time, but how is it going to help the people in the country immediately? The problem is today. We can't wait for you know, these alternate sources to become available tomorrow. The problem is today. We are feeling the pain today. It's eating into our savings today.
Good evening, Heena. I think Mr. Gopal Agarwal said we're feeling the pinch. It is not a pinch. It is almost like dragging us down a black hole. Retail inflation is at a 17-month high, wholesale at the 30-year high. And then, he'll say we're looking at alternate options, but CNG and pumped natural gas also have seen a price rise. You're seeing consistently that every resource that is there, whether fuel, whatever manner, there's an extremely high cost and there's massive inflation that they're not controlling. The problem lies in one singular fact, that the government has not taken the blow of any of these prices and directly transferred the cost onto the common man. Like, for example, you remember just before we demitted office where the BJP was on the streets
These
protesting
market
when
forces
LPG was at
issue was
400 because we took the brunt, right? We obviously we kept the excise duty low, even though the barrel price and the crude was over $100, we made sure that the
but we
prices
have
were
to
low. So
understand
the
the
BJP
economics,
government
how
inherited a
the
10
UPA
lakh crore
government
oil
worked
slick
into
when they
economic
came in.
field.
And Heena, today's situation, forget LPG. Any sort of fuel, the amount that they're making on excise, just from petrol and diesel, they make 26 lakh crores of that money. And you see, none of the burden is shifted from the common man to the government. And now they keep saying we're going to explore the situation. One more example, they had this much touted Ujjwala scheme, where we said we'll take away the chulas, we'll have healthier cooking alternatives for people. But you see, the refill levels are so low because the cost of LPG itself, it's so bad. And the situation today is almost like not only rural women are going to go back to chulas, even urban women would rather cook with firewood because the cost of an LPG cylinder is skyrocketing. And who is profiteering out of this? Tell me one move of the BJP government to alleviate the pain of the common man or the shock and the burden felt by the common man, whether it is pulses, whether it is even essential medicines, whether it is CNG, PNG, any consumer goods, that the BJP government has done nothing. Today, it is difficult to be in any section or strata of society and try and survive in India because the government is offering absolutely no cushion to the blows of price rise. And that is the reality. You can explore all you want, but the damage is already done. What does the BJP have to say to that?
Quick response,
Heenaji.
Gopal Krishna Agarwal, then Riju Datta.
Yeah, the one thing I would like to tell you through you all the viewers, the Ujjwala Yojana, now around 9 crore people have got the connection. Out of that, the figure says that 1.5 crore people are not refilling the thing. What was the figure when in 2014 we came? After almost 65 years of independence, only 2 crore people had gas connections. From 2 crore, it has increased to more than 8.5 crore. Out of that, even if 1.5 crore have not refilled, at least 6 crore, so 4 crore more people in for 7 years than 2 crore in 65 years. That was the figure how the Congress or UPA was working.
Aishwarya, the way prices are rising, remaining 6 crore will have to also think twice before they order a cylinder.
No, but
I was talking to people around me, some say it's become so difficult. They are joking and saying, should we only cook once and, consume the food during the day? Because, the way cooking gas prices are going up, it's just getting impossible for people to even consider having 2 cylinders in a month. Aishwarya, then Riju Datta.
Mr. Gopal Agarwal gave you this wonderful figure of 9 crore beneficiaries under Ujjwala and whatnot. But the most recent study, this is what shows.
Gopal Krishna Agarwal, 1 second. Let her respond, then Riju Datta, then I'll come back to you. 1 second. Yes.
See, the very singular fact is, Mr. Gopal Agarwal will say 9 crore connections and whatnot. You realize more than 60% of them don't go back. But more than that, the NHS survey...
Aishwarya, 1 second. Aishwarya, 1 second. Okay, Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, I give you 10 seconds. Quickly make your point, and then I'll go to my other guests as well who've been patiently waiting for quite some time. Very quickly complete your point.
Second important point is, under GST, LPG gas is under a 5% tax slab. So the people who are saying that the government is collecting tax on this is completely wrong. It is on the lowest slab and it is only 5%. The third important thing is, we are not saying that we are exploring other options. We are already working. Ethanol, then solar energy. Government has gone very large scale level to develop this renewable energy. We are using, see the coverage of solar energy, see the coverage of ethanol. ethanol has been
Okay.
increased
Well, I
by
have two
50%.
experts as well on the broadcast who will tell us how many people have actually moved to, using these alternate sources of energy that you're talking about. But before that, I know Aishwarya wants to come in, but Riju Datta has been patiently waiting for quite some time. Yes, Riju Datta first, and then my other guests.
Thank you, Heena. Thank you. First of all, I just want to say that India is going through some very serious turbulence, and the main crux of the matter is the central regime is still in denial. They don't even want to admit that we are going through these troubled times. Now, I'll give you some numbers because esteemed panelists are here. Wholesale inflation at 15%, retail inflation at 7.79%, which is the highest in 8 years. LPG in November 2020 was 594 rupees. In May 2022, it is 1,000 plus. In Calcutta, it is almost 1,030 rupees. The Indian rupee compared to dollar is on an all-time low. I don't know whether the states are responsible for that or not. Now, moreover, 800 medicines, including something like paracetamol, which is in everybody's pocket, is as prices have gone up. So basically, from health facilities to highway toll to petrol, diesel to LPG, everything has gone up in this BJP regime. And to add more misery on the common man, unemployment is an all-time high in the last 50 years. So to summarize, BJP has basically failed on all fronts and its promises of Achhe Din and everything. And I will sincerely request, rather than distracting and manipulating Indian citizens on hijab, halal, loudspeaker, Hindu, Muslim, mandir, masjid, please focus on these essential things that the people of this country has voted you for. And my sincere request to Modi ji from your channel is, please आप हमारे बुरे दिन वापस कर दीजिए, हमें अच्छे दिन और ये अमृतकाल नहीं चाहिए, हमें हमारे बुरे दिन ही वापस कर दीजिए.
Okay, I'll get Gopal Krishna Agarwal to respond to that. Aishwarya also wants to come in. But before that, S. Ravi, could you just help us understand the current situation that we are all in and the impact this is having on the people in this country who, buy LPG cylinders on a regular basis? Have we seen a reduction in the consumption of LPG cylinders because of the surge in prices?
So, first and foremost, I'll stick to the script. The LPG prices have gone up, but we must consider the fact that this global situation is not very conducive as of this moment. The Ukraine-Russian conflict has not helped the cause. Plus, also the inflation, plus also the dollar, Indian rupee getting weaker. That's also the buying cost becomes very high. So these are 3-4 factors which have sort of escalated the cost price. But we cannot ignore the global cues. The US economy is going through whatever challenges. So we as a country, we cannot stay away from all these conflicts and all this that happens around us. And even if you look at even the country like Sri Lanka, what they have gone through. But India is a stable country. Of course, and what we need to do is to address these issues. Gopal Agarwal ji did talk about alternate energy. There's a process that happens. If you look at all the alternate energy programs that run, it is a 2 to 5 year progress that happens. It doesn't happen overnight. And if you see the solar sort of landscape, it has certainly gone up by about 30%. And if you look at all other avenues, there is a process that is followed. We can't expect all this to happen all of a sudden. The most important thing is the timing of this war is not the best. And when we were really on the track of a good economy, this whole conflict has impacted because Russia was a great supplier for India. And other thing is there is Iran, and everybody is rushing towards a particular destination for supply. The supply-demand gap is also there, which will settle down. My view is this will settle down in a month or two because this conflict will somehow get over, and the whole thing will settle down in a month or two. We have seen a steep rise, and it will taper down as we go forward.
We all understand, Mr. Ravi, that the factors are external, factors are beyond any country's control right now, which are leading to this inflation spike and surge in prices. But there's something definitely that the government can also do to help the people in this country. I mean, you can't just go to the people and say, we can't give you any sort of relief because there's a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. The government has a responsibility. People today are suffering. I understand, this didn't happen immediately. That's why I mentioned the data. Since March last year, at least by 200 rupees, the prices have been increased. Slowly and steadily, prices have been going up. War started recently. Mr. Ganesan, I want to understand from you for the benefit of our viewers. I was reading a research from your side which suggested that while people used to spend 4.9% of their monthly budget in buying cooking fuel or cooking gas, now that expense has gone up to 11%.
Right. So before I just come to this particular point, I want to sort of just clarify one thing. One is, this is not on account of the excessive taxation the central government has on petroleum, primarily because little over 50% of the LPG that we consume in the country actually is imported as product. It is not actually produced within the country. It's imported as LPG from overseas. And if you see, the price even in March of the imported product was higher than 1,050 rupees at landing in a port in India. Then add the bottling costs, add the marketing costs. Even as of March, 50% of the LPG we were consuming was already at higher prices than 1,000. So the first thing is, the government can cushion. I think it attempted to, but it's really now, with a lag of about 2 months or so, it is passing on what it's seeing in the global markets. Right? For the rest of the 50% that we produce within, yes, there is definitely a tax component, but here this is largely on account of the external volatility, which India unfortunately does not have too much control over. And the second point I'd like to sort of make is, let's spare a thought for all of those people who are yet to sort of, even enjoy the benefits of consuming LPG at a subsidized price. Almost everyone here on this panel today has been a beneficiary of subsidized LPG for at least 2 decades or 3 decades. There are people out there who've got their connections in the last 2 years who've not even seen proper subsidy regime, right? So I think what we need to really speak about is not the urban lot who've had access to LPG for 3 decades, 4 decades, right? Supported consistently by subsidy. What we really need to think about is that really poor person out there who's not benefited from it and who has to really go back to the chula. To be honest, there is no urban person who's going to a chula. Let's be very clear about it, right? They will cough up the money and they will pay for it and they'll go on. And as Mr. Ravi has said, in 2 months' time, they'll all be back to sort of, lower prices, well within the affordability. We really have to now not talk about the urban lot who's affected. I'm sure there are lots of poor people in the urban areas as well, but really it is about people who got the 9 crore consumers who got it, who desperately need the support. Otherwise, they will go back to the chula. The urban people are not going to go back to the chula. And finally, to the point on, whether the cost has really gone up, to clarify, that really was the basis for that study was that we estimated what was the price of LPG at the time the survey was done and what was their monthly expenditure. And at that point in time, it worked out to the number that you quoted. And now, given the price of LPG, and as you know, between when the survey was done in March 2020 and now, the price of LPG has, more than doubled. And as a result, the percentage share has also gone up. But chances are a lot of households that actually lost incomes during Corona, right, had to actually take pay cuts. For them, the expenditure share is probably even higher, right? So definitely this is a bad situation for pretty much every household across the country. But I feel that the population that's represented on this panel has nothing to complain about. It really is the poorest person on the street who should really be out there saying, you know what, you've not given a subsidy ever. When will my time come? Yeah.
Okay, Riju Datta wants to respond, then Gopal Krishna Agarwal, then Aishwarya Mahadev. Yes.
Yes. I think what this is happening in India. I completely disagree with what Mr. Ganeshan said. If he thinks that everybody on this panel or all the people in urban areas are privileged and they're not feeling the bite, I disagree with him, because urban area people are also salaried and they have specific specific salary where they keep it compartmentalized for their specific expenditure. So this is biting everybody. Yes, it is obviously biting people who have got their connections 1 or 2 years back, but please don't patronize by saying the urban people are not feeling the pinch. Number one, because it has a percolating effect on everything with the price rise. Number 1 point. Number 2 point. If the government had good intentions, now I come from a TMC, so I am asking a political question. If the government had good intentions, before the war, there was a time when the crude oil barrel price was less than $60. Why didn't the government at that time reduce the pricing? They did not reduce. They kept it stagnant because elections were going on in Uttar Pradesh and few important states. As soon as the UP elections got over, the prices kept on going up. And I promise you on this debate that even though the international market, like the esteemed panelists here who know the market better than me, when it will come to a stagnancy, still our price will not go down. It will either remain the same or go up again. This is the point I want to drive across, that the BJP regime, due to their lack of infrastructure or lack of their foresight, is driving this country into bankruptcy. That is what I'm trying to get across to the people of this country who voted for BJP, that they should understand what they have voted for. All these words, I was very surprised when the BJP spokesperson did not say that Aurangzeb is responsible for this. What is happening? You have to hit the nail on its head. जब दाम घट रहा है तब आप घटाते तो हम कुछ नहीं बोलते. आप दाम घटाएंगे नहीं, सिर्फ धर्म के नाम पे अगरबत्ती जलाएंगे और फिर लोगों को भटकाएंगे और दाम बढ़ाते रहेंगे. And it is decimating the middle class. The middle class.
और सवाल इसलिए भी पूछे जा रहे हैं क्योंकि आश्वासन दिया गया था, when the prices will go up, we will take care of the people. But unfortunately, that did not happen. Aishwarya Mahadev.
Heena, to abdicate responsibility as a government citing global factors is just not going to fly with the people. The UPA government saw a global economic downturn. We also saw the crude hitting an extremely high amount, over $100, but we still cushioned the blow. We obviously kept excise duties low. And what Mr. Riju Datta says is also completely correct, right? Even before the war, and mind you, India did have a deal with Russia, much to the chagrin of a lot of people. And the fact remains that when you say settle down, that is the most privileged sort of conversation you can be having. First and foremost, people are unemployed. They have lower amounts of money in their pocket. Now, prices are constantly rising. 1-2 months, it may settle down. There's a certain section of society who can obviously bear that burden. But the poorest of the poor, and mind you, the urban poor are far more disenfranchised and disadvantaged compared to the rural poor in a lot of ways because of income sources being so limited. To say it is going to settle down and things are going to be all right in a month or two is absolutely unacceptable. But tell me actively, what is the government doing? And these, ideas of alternate sources of energy, everybody, it's great textbook, but everybody realizes primary sources of energy, such as solar and all of them, to be made viable commercially to the extent of even cooking or household use is not at the level it is. Even the clean fuels. And, one response, Mr. Gopal Agarwal spoke about Ujjwala so well, said 9 crore beneficiaries and whatnot. Sir, the most recent NHHS survey tells you, and they've had the largest household survey compared to decades, tells you that only 20% of the households across India actually are using any form of clean fuel, including LPG. And the data the government is getting comes from the oil marketing companies, not the people on the ground, which is why there's a massive skew in the level of what they're claiming as refill and how many people are actually using these cylinders. And the reality on the ground is extremely different. And now we've made it even more unfeasible for people to use LPGs. And that is the fact. So what is the course correction? The government has offered, and I repeat, has offered no relaxation, no cushion, and absolutely no remedy to the skyrocketing prices. And in 2 months, who knows how many people will die of starvation or have no resources at all to afford even the basic necessities and essentials, Heena.
And why do we always have to wait for things to get better? When it comes to power crisis, we are hoping and praying monsoon rain will come soon and we'll get some relief. If there is a coal crisis, we are hoping and praying that, automatically the demand will go down when the rains will come and things will get better. For how long will this attitude really continue is something that we want Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal to address. But before that, let's also quickly hear what the people of this country have to say. The people who've been watching this debate today, Yes, we have Paramjeet, a viewer, joining us on the broadcast this evening from the national capital. Paramjeet, thank you for calling us here on Mirror Now on Urban Debate. What is it that you would like to say?
I have a question for Mr. Agarwal. Agarwal ji?
Yes.
अग्रवाल जी
जी
हाँ जी हाँ
हाँ
यस
हाँ जी आपके लिए बहुत आसान है लोअर मिडिल क्लास को स्क्वीज करना पेट्रोल के दाम बढ़ा दीजिए डीजल के बढ़ा दीजिए एलपीजी के बढ़ा दीजिए आपने कारपोरेट टैक्सेस 10% कम किए हैं उनमें 4-5% बढ़ा दीजिए आपको ये बाकी काम करने की जरूरत नहीं होगी क्या आप हमें ऐसे ही अच्छे दिन दिखाएंगे जैसे श्रीलंका में हैं
All right, Paramjeet ji, thank you very much for calling us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Now, this is what the people are saying. How will you like to address his concerns? Will you tell him also that there is a crisis going on between Russia and Ukraine and hence the government can't do anything?
No, I'm not telling that government can't do anything. I'm telling what the government is doing. If you can't hear, I am not, I don't understand why you can't hear it. One thing is, we are discussing not the opinion, but our discussion, because you have an urban debate, should be on fact. One thing is, I told you that the taxes on this gas is minimum. GST lowest slab is 5%. It is very low, one thing. Second thing is, it was the UPA government in 2010 which started this market alignment for pricing for petroleum products. So it is now they are crying foul. It is not fair. Third thing is, I said I agree with Mr. Ganeshan that the maximum pinch of any price rise or inflation is on the poor strata. I tell you, there are several schemes that we are working particularly targeted way without any leakages, corruption to the benefit of the poor sections, whether it is Ujjwala, whether it is Ayushman Bharat, whether it is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Swachh Toilet, and Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. In everywhere, I tell you how much fund have been transferred to the poor sections. I can give you every number. The Congress will be
so
feeling
you believe
ashamed
that today if
years of
LPG cylinder cost 1,000 rupees in Delhi, it is only impacting the poorest of the poor and nobody else. Well, I have more viewers now joining us on the broadcast. Let's also listen in to those. Then Riju Datta also wants to come in. Ramesh Swaminathan is joining us from Hyderabad this evening. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Answer that corporate
One second, Mr. Agarwal, I will give you ample time to respond. I will give you ample time to respond, sir, with due respect. Let's also hear what the people are saying. I will give you time to respond. I am getting a lot of calls this evening because people, one second, people are getting impacted. I'm getting a lot of calls this evening.
I should answer that.
I will give you time, Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal. 1 second. I have another viewer joining us. I will come back to you. Ramesh Swaminathan is with us from Hyderabad. Good evening, Ramesh Swaminathan. Go ahead.
I want to express two things. One is the people are telling, our BJP gentleman is telling, we are helping poor people. Sir, if the people, middle class only pays you tax. Middle class only pays you maximum tax in this country. The one way of overcoming this problem is, why don't you release the foreign exchange? Release at least 20-30% of it. Spend it. The money is there only for rainy days. These people only make you earn that money. Why don't you do that? You see that the poor people, the man who paid tax, he give it back the money. He only made you to accumulate that much wealth. He only did all the export business and everything. He only got you the money. Why don't you release the foreign reserves? Why don't you release the foreign reserves? Don't say that we are given this to poor.
All right.
This to poor. It's a middle class.
Ramesh Swaminathan. Right. Ramesh Swaminathan, appreciate you joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Savio is live with us from Nagpur as well. Good evening, Savio. Thank you for calling us here on Urban Debate. What is it that you will like to say?
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for giving me an opportunity. I would like to question Mr. Agrawal, the BJP spokesperson. He's talking like the BJP always keeps talking about the the lower middle class and the poor section. What about people like us from the middle class family? We belong to a middle class family. I earn around 18 to 20,000 a month. I require, if only I'm talking about the debate as of now, that you're the topic on that you're debating now, that is the LPG. I have to use around I use 1.5 cylinders in a month. I have to shed out around 1,500 rupees only on cylinder. How do I manage the other expenses that I have to take care of, like to shed out for my family? On everything there is a price hike. You talk about cooking oil.
Savio.
You talk about anything.
Savio, thank you very much for calling us here on Mirror Now and sharing with us the problems that you're facing.
Heena,
Mr.
Heena,
Gopal
if I
Krishna
may, very
Agarwal,
briefly,
please
Heena.
respond now. Respond to the people who have
There
called
were
you.
three questions. I'll respond. Yes, I'll take all the three questions. First
Yes.
was, why do you do
Yes.
not raise corporate tax? I tell you that if corporate tax has been reduced, the total corporate tax, direct tax collection has increased by 26%. And on the indirect tax, we have reduced from average of 25% of indirect tax to now 11.6%. That is the way we have indirect tax has been reduced from 25% average to 11.6% average. And in that also the this gas GST is only 5%. So first question is that corporate tax has been reduced, but the collection has increased. GST and indirect tax for common man and all people. It is not indirect tax is not paid by only
It's
poor.
good to
It is
hear
paid
that your
by the
tax
middle
revenue
class.
is going
No,
up.
no,
You are getting more money, but the middle class is
No, I
suffering.
have to answer the
How
three
will you
questions,
address the
ma'am.
second
Heena ji,
concern?
I have to answer three questions. I have answered first. Second is that what we are doing for the middle class and other things. The middle class, the government is working on PLI, industrial development, manufacturing, etc., infrastructure development, ease of living. 90 crore
Can I
people
come
are
in, please?
getting
I
free
cannot take
rations.
this
And 90
continuous
crore
lines.
doesn't include only the poor sections. It includes the middle
But
class
sir,
also.
you are not addressing the problem here. The
No, the
problem is
third
of
is
rise in
192
LPG prices.
crore
Riju
people.
Datta wants to come in.
No, the
See,
third question
Gopal ji, Gopal ji, आपने बहुत बोला. You are going on. No. We are not interested in your third answer. Sir, we are not interested. The people are not interested. When you go and ask for votes of the common man, do you give them RBI percentages? Do you give them interim percentages? Do you talk about inflation? No. You do not increase corporate tax because you have two ATMs who fund your elections. Number one. BJP is the richest party in this country with the highest electoral bonds, but India is not one of the richest countries in the world because the common man are suffering. Don't continue with this jargon of percentages. When you go to the middle class and the poor to scam them of their votes, you don't give them percentages. Now don't give percentages, sir. आम आदमी को कोई मतलब नहीं है आपका कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स का परसेंटेज क्या है. आम आदमी जानना चाहता है आप लोग दाम घटाएंगे हाँ या ना. No, Mr. Agarwal, one simple question. Will your party reduce the price of fuel?
In West Bengal, the way
Please do
Mamata
not give
Banerjee,
technical jargon.
the way
Don't try
Mr.
to
Gopal
don't
Krishna
try to fool
Agarwal,
people.
बड़ा
I
सीधा
will
सवाल
not
एक
use
व्यूअर ने पूछा था. You know, a viewer, Savio, one second, Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, Savio from Nagpur. One second, both of you calm down, gentlemen, calm down. Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, you are of the view that only poorest of the poor are getting impacted because of the rise in prices of, essential commodities in the country, rise in prices of LPG cylinders. We had Savio calling us from Nagpur who told us, his monthly income is around 18 to 20,000 and 1.5 cylinder is what he uses along with his family in 1 month. For him, it is a punch. It's no longer a pinch. It's a punch and it is eating into his monthly budget. He needs to cut down on probably his other important expenses so that he's able to, afford 1.5 cylinders. He wants to ask you, what is your government doing to, bring some relief to his life?
I told you that the rise in the gas prices are definitely a pinch to everybody, including middle class and the lower middle class and the poor section. What I'm telling you is the government is distributing free ration to 90 crore people. We have given 192 crore people free
सर,
vaccination. The
राशन
thing is,
देने से
we have to
ये जो
understand
कुकिंग
that
गैस है
inflation,
इसका
आप
क्या
पूरा
लेना देना
बोलने नहीं
है, मुझे
देंगे
ये
तो
समझ
कैसे
नहीं आ
होगा?
रहा है। ऐश्वर्या
अरे
महादेव,
आप
हाउ
कुछ
आर these two
सुनेंगे
even
नहीं तो कैसे
connected?
समझ जाएंगे?
You're giving
हिना
free
जी,
ration, but at the same time you're charging so much for the LPG cylinders.
आप
Aishwarya
अपने
Mahadev.
Hina, let
लिस्टनर्स को
me
भी तो
paint.
करेंगे,
Can I
हमें जब आप
please
पूरा
speak?
सुनेंगे ही नहीं तो कैसे आप समझ जाएंगे? बताइए, सुनना ही नहीं चाहते तो आप समझेंगे कैसे?
नहीं, हम आपको आपको हमने पूरा समय दिया। आप बस ये बता रहे हैं
अरे
कि आपका
आप
रेवेन्यू
आप
कलेक्शन अच्छा हो गया है।
यहाँ
आप
पे
बता
बैठे
रहे
ही
हैं कि आप फ्री
परसेंट
राशन देते हैं।
आपके यहाँ पे
You're
5
not
लोग
addressing the
बैठे
main
हुए
issue here.
हैं, तो
Riju,
आप
one
6
second.
लोग
Riju
बैठे हुए
Datta,
हैं।
Gopal Krishna Agarwal, both of you, now please
मैडम,
calm down.
आपको तो
Let
आपके यहाँ पे 6
Aishwarya
लोग
respond. One second. Both of you calm down. Yes.
Now, the most grim reality has been for a lot of people, especially the middle class and the
और
lower
आप
middle
कहेंगे
class and the
वो आंसर दे
salaried
दो, खत्म
communities,
हो गया।
that over the past 2 years, a lot of them have been laid off or have taken a massive pay cut to still retain a job. One. And second, in this scenario, you're not only seeing fuel price, petrol and diesel hike, now you're seeing LPG fuel price hike also, along with things like essential cooking oil, vegetable, meat, all essential commodities, the price going higher while the people earning is much lower. And during the pandemic, at least crores and crores of people who are above the poverty line have now fallen below and have no means and have not even been accommodated into the PDS system because of the fact of the institutional problem of including them and giving them those special cards, right? And so what has happened now, and it's a vicious cycle, that the prices keep rising. And mind you, oil prices will go higher because sunflower oil and the link between the Ukraine war also is very soon going to be spoken of in far more detail. So the vicious cycle is people are earning lower or not earning at all, while essential commodities, not only LPG and fuel, but also essential like pulses and rice and grain and vegetable and meat prices are going up. And you're not going to see a solution in this at all. And no amount of percentages, RBI, BJP governments, institutional schemes are going to help unless the government can directly, and I'm going to repeat this at the sake of being repetitive, if I may say so, say unless they take the burden away from the common man and stop transferring the burden to the common man. The BJP is not willing to do that whatsoever for any price rise, and there is no solution to break this vicious
And firstly,
cycle
I think there is
unless
a
they
need
do.
to acknowledge that yes, there is a big problem that
Exactly
they
what I
need to
said in the
address.
beginning,
I'll go across to
they are in
S. Ravi
constant
and
denial.
Karthik Ganesan as well for the closing comments. One second. I have, few more callers joining us on the broadcast. Let's also hear from them. Anand Subbarao from Bengaluru is on the broadcast with us. Good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Urban Debate. What is it that you would like to say?
Thank you, Heena, for allowing me to talk. In fact, the price rise is a pinching common man and middleman. I do agree. But in the meantime, I would also like to tell about this. See, when Congress regime was there, actually, to book cylinder, you have to wait for 15 days, and after booking the cylinder, you would get after 1 month. But now, situation is totally reverse. If you book the cylinder, same day it will be delivered. Yeah, I do agree. There are so many external factors for the price rise, but it's not going to continue. It is going to die down. And in the meantime, I would also like to give comment on TMC as well as Congress regime, where VAT price was reduced for petrol. When so many other states got reduced, but Congress ruled state as well as the TMC ruled state, they did not reduce the price. If they are so worried about common man, they could have done it.
Okay.
Can I answer?
All right. Anand Subbarao, thank you very much for calling us here on Urban Debate. We have Hussain joining us from Chennai as well. Good evening, Hussain. Thank you for calling us. What is it that you would like to say?
Good evening, madam. Firstly, I would like to tell you that, we were slightly recovering from the COVID impact. And, the economy was improving. But suddenly we see the government bulldozing with the price hikes everywhere. From LPG to petroleum to retail. I am from the lower middle class family, and I earn somewhere around 40 to 45,000. Earlier, I used to spend somewhere 3,000 to 3,500 on fuel. Now I'm spending 5,000. On LPG, I used to spend somewhere around 800. I'm going to spend 1,500. Why doesn't the government accept the reality and give the relief to common people like us? And I feel that, it is heading towards like Sri Lanka. The days are not far.
Okay. Okay, Hussain, appreciate you joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. Mr. S. Ravi and Mr. Karthik Ganesan, people need relief immediately. They understand there is a crisis, but they need immediate help. What is it that the government can do, in your opinion, to, give relief to the people who need it the most? S. Ravi first and then Mr. Ganesan.
So the very fact, we have to understand the global situation, which I had stated before. We have to understand the plight of people also. We have to understand that. And I think government did come up with a lot of relief during COVID, like Atmanirbhar scheme, etc. And I am sure the government will look at some such relief because anyway, the war has extended far beyond what one expected also. That is another thing that nobody could see when the war would end. So that government can do many things. For example, they can look at revising the tax, the minimum tax here. But I think other thing is that the economy is also to grow. And without taxes, how do we fund this economy? So the deficit will increase. So I think, and the global clues are not good. And everything is falling apart in the US and other places. So we have to understand this fact. And also we have to understand we cannot compare our country with Sri Lanka. That's a very, very wrong comparison. I totally disagree with our comparison with Sri Lanka at any point. But government can take measures, and I'm sure government will be cognizant of the fact and will take steps like a reduction in tax or giving tax breaks. Okay. I think that will be the first step.
Okay. Karthik Ganesan, just like during the UPA era, for some time, can the government think of bringing this subsidy regime back? Do you think that will be prudent to help the people?
Why just the UPA regime? I think even the NDA regime had it all the way up till May 2020. So it was basically post-COVID. Obviously, the timing of the subsidy withdrawal has been terrible, right? As basically incomes tanked, the prices continued to rise. And the justification then was that we're basically using the taxation and the not passing through the subsidy to basically, keep the economy afloat during COVID, the medical expenditure, which perhaps, valid at some level may not be valid. But the harsh reality, Heena, is basically that this is an imported commodity and it is subject to the vagaries. Now, we can obviously say the government needs to step in and subsidize it back to the levels, earlier the notional level maintained was 450 rupees. So which means today, if that is the level, 600 rupees a cylinder. And you can imagine we consume about 170 crore cylinders a year. Okay, India consumes about 170 crore cylinders a year. So 600 rupees per cylinder, you look at the figure there. No amount of tax revenue can make up for that kind of support. So let's be realistic in saying that it is not possible for the government to go back to a universal subsidy regime. No government would have done it. I mean, there are obviously people from other political parties who disagree, but no government would have been in a position to subsidize it back to the 450 rupees that we had earlier, which was notionally maintained. So the time has to come now where we figure out who do we provide that subsidy to. I absolutely agree. I'm not being patronizing when I say that, only the poorest suffer. Certainly, as the TMC gentleman pointed out, there are people in the urban areas who are suffering. Now, is there a way of actually identifying those people and getting money in their hands? The government did do that during COVID when they released, for instance, 3 cylinders free of cost to every PMUI consumer. That is 8 crore consumers, 24 crore cylinders potentially were there for the giveaway.
Right.
Can we come up with a way of figuring out those most needed? And the challenge there is we don't have a way of targeting individuals in the country because, the risk of targeting is you tend to leave out certain people and then there's a new, uproar saying that you've missed out certain sections of society. So I think the real challenge, given that this is going to be a recurring phenomenon, and given that, India has to move away from this regime where whether it's electricity, whether it is cooking gas, there is a demand for subsidy from all quarters. The need is for us to identify a watertight mechanism where targeting is possible and you don't leave room. And finally, the final point that I want to make is this.
Right.
Even in 2011-12, which is basically the last time when a nationally representative survey was carried out, the average household in India spent 6% of its monthly expenditure on cooking. Okay, the average household in India, as per government surveys, a survey that was done during a non-NDA government, 6% of their monthly expenditure was spent on cooking. So now let's figure out whether LPG today is way higher than the 6% or is marginally above the 6%, and can we basically bring it back to that 6% for the average Indian? If we can, I think we've done a good job. I don't think looking at 40 rupees is realistic.
Okay, very interesting points you have made. I want to give the last word now to Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal because, you know, people want relief. What is the message you would like to give tonight to the viewers?
We understand that the inflation is a very big challenge that all people of the country and the government and the RBI all are facing it. The government, RBI basically has done several steps by increasing interest rate, etc., to contain inflation to the level of 6%, which is the upper limit. And the second thing is, till that time we achieve that, the government is trying to put money into the hands of the poor people so that the feel of the punch, which is maximum in the lower strata, they get benefited. Even we are working on increasing the supply of petroleum products, etc., and we are hopeful that in the near future this Ukraine war and the Russian war will stop and the disruptions in supply of gas.
We are hopeful that the government will not wait for the geopolitical situation to get better. Rather, will look at the situation at hand and probably will do something immediately to help the people in this country. That's what we can really hope. I'm completely out of time, but thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mir Now this evening. And that's going to be our top focus ahead as well. For the moment, heading into a short break. Don't go anywhere.